So, Star Wars, Episode 8, The Last Jedi. I'm sure some of you have been waiting to hear my thoughts about this. I admit, I am a huge Star Wars fan, as everybody probably knows. And I'll admit, after Rogue One and to a lesser degree, The Force Awakens, I was a little bit apprehensive about going to see this one. I was wondering, like, is it, can Disney and Lucasfilm kind of redeem themselves for how Rogue One went? Because if you saw my review of that one, you know I was not the biggest fan of that movie. But I will say, first, my thoughts about The Last Jedi can be summed up basically in two words. Holy shit. Now, those of you who watch a lot of my videos, you know I don't curse very much in them. But that basically sums up this movie. Holy shit. And you're probably going to hear that a few times throughout this video. Because I will admit, this movie, I did not see a lot of what was going to happen coming. I mean, story-wise, effects-wise, it did definitely, to me, make up for Star Wars Rogue One. And if you're just looking for just my yay or nay opinion on this right now, I will tell you to go ahead, shut off this video, and definitely go see Star Wars The Last Jedi. Go on, go see it. Okay, is everybody that just took off to see the movie, did they just leave? Okay, so now if you want my more in-depth analysis of the movie, story-wise, it takes place right after Star Wars The Force Awakens. We see the remnants of the Resistance fleet taking off from their newest base while being chased by the First Order. And it's basically going to be their struggle for most of the movie is basically they're low on fuel, and somehow the First Order is able to track them through hyperspace, which, if you know anything about Star Wars, is said to be pretty much impossible up until this point. But somehow the First Order's found a way to do it. Now, so they're basically anywhere that they try to escape, the First Order can follow them. And unfortunately, a lot of the ships are running low on fuel, so if they're gonna jump again, this time it has to count. So that's kind of their thing that most of the characters like Poe, Leia, and all of them have to deal with throughout the movie. Meanwhile, Finn and a new character, Rose, are trying to get on board the First Order's flagship so that they can find the device that's helping them to be able to track stuff through hyperspace and be able to shut it down so that the fleet can get out. Now, while all this is going on, Rey has finally met Luke Skywalker, and she's trying to convince him to train her to be a Jedi. And at first, Luke is not having any of this. If you remember the end of Force Awakens, we see Rey holding out his lightsaber for him. We get to see the continuation of that scene where Luke looks at the lightsaber and just proceeds to chuck it behind him and just walk away. It's like, yeah, not happening. So Rey basically has to convince Luke to basically come out of retirement and train her. And then once he finally does, then she basically has to learn what the Force is really about, and we learn a bit more about the events behind the Jedi Temple attack and what happened with Luke and Kylo Ren and stuff. And so that was pretty interesting. And it all culminates in this huge climax where everybody ends up on board the First Order's flagship through their own methods. Finn and Kylo Ren end up on there. I mean, not Finn and Kylo Ren, but Rey and Kylo Ren, Finn and Rose end up on on there trying to sabotage the hyperspace tracker thing. And we finally see what Supreme Leader Snoke is like in a again, going back to the end of Star Wars: The Force Awakens. When we saw Snoke, there was just this big holographic image of him. Now, a lot of people thought that that was going to be some kind of disguise and that he was going to end up being either Palpatine or Darth Plagueis or something. No, basically, Snoke looks like exactly what you saw in the hologram before. So, basically, Snoke's thing is that he wants Kylo Ren to bring Rey to him and to try to find out where Luke is hiding. So like I said, though, I mean, everybody does find, like, everything all comes together at the end. And, I mean, there's some plot holes in the movie, but, I mean, overall, it is quite well done. There is one thing that a lot of people were hoping to see in this movie that supposedly they explain, but to me it doesn't really gel right. And basically, we supposedly find out who Rey's parents really are. And not a fan of this one. Basically, according to the visions and a conversation between Rey and Kylo Ren, we find out that Rey's parents were junk traders that basically left her for money and then ended up, quote unquote, buried in a beggar's grave on Jakku. Problem with this, though. In Force Awakens, we saw a very clear flashback of Rey on the planet with a ship taking off that presumably was meant to be her parents. So how could they have left her on the planet and then still be buried there on the planet? I don't know. There was an interview with J.J. Abrams that said that he might go back to that in Episode 9, and I actually kind of hope that he does, because I don't know, this thing just didn't really... I didn't like this revelation. I thought it was dumb, and everybody was like, I know who your parents are, and then they revealed that at the end. I was like, that's it. Yeah, so that I had a problem with. Now, as far as the special effects go, it's Star Wars. It's Industrial Light and Magic's work, and as always, the special effects in this movie are gorgeous. We see some really cool planets. There's this one world called Canto Bight that has this huge casino that it's actually really cool to see. And apparently Star Wars aliens like to gamble it up just as much as the rest of us. And then there are... The last bits of the movie take place on this salt flat desert planet, and they actually have these really cool animals in there that they basically call them crystal critters, that they're pretty much like coyotes that are made out of blue crystals, and they're really cool looking. I wouldn't necessarily mind having one as a pet. And speaking of interesting animals, there's some that might be wondering about my thoughts on this, but basically the ones that we keep seeing in all the merchandise, they're these creatures called porgs that are basically rodents with bird legs and stuff on them. And my thoughts on they basically live on the planet that Luke's on. And my thoughts on them, they're cute, but they basically kind of get annoying really fast. And if you're watching the movie, you'll see that Chewbacca definitely agrees with me. They're always pestering him on the cockpit of the Millennium in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, and he keeps trying to shoo them away. I mean, it is funny, but I mean, they're basically put in there for comedy relief, and they're okay, but I think they do kind of wear out their welcome after a little while. But then that kind of sums up a lot of the movie's attempts at comedy. Like, not really any huge spoilers, but toward the beginning, their attempt at distracting the First Order basically involves Poe going out in an X-wing. See, I got his name right this time. And getting a hold of General Hux with a gag about acting like he's on hold, trying to talk to Hux. And when Hux keeps responding, it's like, hello? Are you there? Is this thing on? Which, I mean, a few seconds is fine, but then it stretches out and basically culminates in a, yeah, Princess Leia has a message for you regarding your mother. So their big plan to distract the First Order at first revolves around insulting General Hux's mother. Brilliant. And then we find I'm on the plus side, like I know I gotta talk about this. On the other, I'm really don't like thinking about it. But like we find Finn waking up in a on a in a medical ship, basically like with this weird plastic over vest thing with all these tubes of cables out. I mean, all these like tubes of I don't know what it's supposed to be. If it's supposed to be water or bacta or whatever it is. But he ends up waking up, falling out of his bunk and stuff. Yeah, like the first part, it tries to do a lot of comedy, but it didn't really work for me. But I mean, there were some good comedy parts, especially toward the end. Like as it goes on, it's like the movie ended up finding its pace more. So I mean, the beginning of the movie basically felt kind of awkward at first, but then it got going and actually got really good. So I mean, that'd be my thoughts there as far as the story goes. Like I said, I don't want to go into any huge spoilers. I do want you guys to see this one for yourself, but that's basically my thoughts there. So let's see here. We've covered the special effects. I mean, we've covered the. I've basically gave a rundown of the story. Um, music. I mean, come on, it's Star Wars. Star Wars is always known for having awesome music. This is a given. I mean, I'm not really sure if there were any tracks that especially stood out, but I mean, overall, it was definitely a solid, definitely some good solid Star Wars music there. Um, Another thing is too that they do actually give, like, a lot of people probably know this, but partway through the credits they do actually give a dedication to Carrie Fisher in there, which I thought was really nice to see. Because I mean, she did pass away not too long after the movie was done. So, although I'll give you a funny little spoiler, Leia actually does make it through the movie. I was told they're going to give her some kind of send off in the movie, but I guess that just meant the in memory of Carrie Fisher thing, because she still ends up being pretty well in charge of the resistance at the end of the movie. So I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen with the resistance leadership. Actually, there's a lot of stuff basically that I am looking forward to seeing where they go with it in Episode 9, because a ton of stuff happens in this movie that basically changes everything around. I mean, like I said, we finally see who and what Snoke is. We don't really get any backstory on him though, and we're probably not going to get any backstory on him in the movie because here's a little thing: he dies. Yes, I spoiled that. Kylo Ren ends up. They keep teasing like Kylo Ren is going to end up turning good guy again, and at the end, like, because this is going toward the end of the movie, all right. But I mean, you're already watching this, so you might as well, like, you know that there's going to be spoilers in this. So this isn't even like toward the end of the movie. This is like later, just a little bit into the second half of the movie. But we find Snoke has Rey and Kylo Ren in his throne room on the flagship. And at one point, he's telling Kylo Ren, "Now finish your training. Strike Rey down." He's like, "Where once I saw weakness, now I see only resolve. You are focusing on your lightsaber, and now you are turning it on to strike down your true enemy." Here's a little hint. Snoke is here. Rey's lightsaber is here. Lightsaber turning on. Yes. He basically ends up skewering Snoke with Rey's lightsaber, and then calling it back, and we basically see Snoke looking like, if you ever seen like the Bugs Bunny cartoons when a character gets scared and they all fall to pieces. That's pretty much what Snoke looked like after that. So I don't know. He went from being the main villain of the new trilogy to just being a bunch of body pieces in front of his throne. Rather anticlimactic, that I will admit. I was hoping we were going to actually get to see some of what Snoke could really do. I mean, heck, I would have loved to have seen a big duel between Snoke and Luke. But we didn't really get any of that. Basically, yeah, Kylo Ren ends up killing Snoke, and then he and Rey have this really huge fight with a whole bunch of Snoke's guards that actually was pretty cool to see. Because we see the guards, like, they look kind of like the Imperial guards from Return of the Jedi, with like the long red robes and helmets and the pikes and stuff. Except these ones don't just use pikes. We see like lances with glowing edges. We actually see a light whip, which as a Star Wars fan I really loved seeing. We get to see a couple of light whips in there. Basically a whip with a whole bunch of segments that are glowing on it. It was pretty cool. So that actually made for a really good fight. And then afterwards, they tease like Ren is going to join Rey, but then he tries to get her to join the First Order, and she's like, "Don't do this." And I was kind of thinking, "Don't do this. Come on, we already went this far. Just yeah." But nope. So there's this really cool struggle where she's trying to call her lightsaber to her, and he's trying to pull it back to him, and they're basically doing this forced tug of war with the lightsaber in the middle, and finally Rey's lightsaber, which if you'll remember was Luke's old one, just like breaks in half. And actually, while this is going on, I mentioned I really love the effects. There is a really awesome bit that happens like right this time, because while all this stuff is going on the flagship, like the fleet's all been trying to escape, and somehow they're only tracking like the resistance flagship, and so everybody ends up evacuating on smaller transports because those have like some kind of stealth cloaking capability where and they're not being watched, so they're able to make an escape while the First Order keeps their eye on the main ship. Except going back, see, this goes back to how everything ties all around. While like I'd mentioned about Finn and Rose going to find this code slicer to get them on board the ship. Except this guy ends up selling them out and tells them about how to find the ships out there. So the First Order knows the transports are there and now are going to attack them. So to try to save which ships are left, this new character, Vice Admiral Hondo, who I actually would have loved to have known more of her story. Like she's the older lady that you see in a lot of the trailers making this speech about the Resistance that has like the long purple hair, played by Laura Dern. And she seemed like she actually had a lot of story because I guess from what I picked up in the movie, she was supposed to have been some kind of a student of Leia's. And anyways, she ends up turning the flagship around to try to help get the transports to escape. And we actually see this really awesome effect of a, a, a huge of a resistance flagship flying towards the First Order's flagship, going to light speed and ramming right through it. I mean, it when it hits, like everything just stops, and you see like this white glow where the ship ended up going through, and it it was definitely awesome. So, but yeah, so that that I really enjoyed seeing that. That looked really cool. And so now, story wise, there is another elephant in this room that I do have to address at some point here. Basically, kind of following what I'm guessing is kind of a theme from the Force Awakens. Another hero dies. This time, again, marking for spoilers. If you don't want to know this one, turn this video off right now. I'll give you a count of five. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We see this is basically the last hurrah for Luke Skywalker. And I'm still kind of processing this. I'm still not sure how I feel about this. Luke, he ends up having this turnaround in how he sees stuff with. Again, this is actually really cool. We actually get to see the return of the Force Ghost of Yoda. Basically, Yoda tells Luke that he's too hung up on the past and stuff, and always trying to look toward the horizon instead of looking at where he's at now. And Luke and Yoda have this really cool scene together that, to me, it was one of the highlights of the movie, definitely. And then later we see Luke showing up at the Resistance base to have one more confrontation with Kylo Ren, where we learn that he's trying to stall the First Order troops so that the last Resistance members can escape on the Millennium Falcon. Now, I mean, I know what I want to say here. I'm just trying to line my thoughts up here. Because again, I'm not really sure how I feel about this. We see an ability that I don't really remember seeing in any previous Star Wars books, or movies or games or whatever. I could be wrong, okay? I mean, if anybody knows where this has been done, let me know, okay? Because I would actually kind of like a reminder on this one. But we see that, in a way, okay, an interesting thing throughout the movie is that somehow Kylo and Rey are connected. Somehow they're able to communicate with each other over long distances. And for somehow Rey is able to see where Kylo is, but Kylo can't really pick up where Rey is. And at some point in the movie, Luke ends up able to see them talking. So somehow, I'm still not entirely sure how this works, but he basically sees Rey talking to Kylo Ren and sees like his Force projection, I guess it is, sitting there with her talking. And apparently this is a apparently this is a thing in Star Wars now because going along with it, at one point toward the end, we see Luke actually show up at the Resistance base. Now, this might raise a few flags with people watching the movie because they established at that point that the cavern that they're hiding out in has one way in and one way out, and that way it just had a huge blast door lowered down in front of it. So, how did Luke get in? How did Luke get in? And this is really weird though because a lot of the characters there are not force sensitive, and everybody is somehow able to see him. Like I mentioned the force sensitivity thing, because this does come back in. Like everybody sees Luke, and we see him walk out to to meet the First Order troops, and then Kylo Ren comes down, and he's trying to kill Luke, swinging his lightsaber. Luke's able to dodge right and left. Pardon me. Luke's able to dodge right and left, doing a few Matrix moves, and actually, I actually like that part too. That actually was really cool. Um, and then after, basically, when everybody gets out, Luke actually turns off his lightsaber, goes, "You know, if you strike me down in anger, I'm not just gonna be with you, just like your dad." And then we see Kylo ignite his lightsaber, get all mad, charge, and we see him slash at Luke, only for absolutely nothing to happen. We still see Luke just standing there, and Kylo's like, hmm? Comes up, stabs Luke a couple more times, which is kind of funny. And that's when we realize that somehow Luke is able to do this force projection trick too. Like he's like, well, see you around, kid. And then he just disappears. And then, weird thing is that not long after this, we actually we go to a cut of Luke on the island planet that he was on this whole time, and we just see him just do the forced disappearance thing, kind of like Obi-Wan and Yoda did in the original movies. So, I mean, how or why, I'm not sure, but basically, Luke just kind of force ghosts himself after this. I mean, so there won't be any. So I'm guessing there's not going to be any Luke Skywalker in Episode 9, or if there is, he's probably going to do the whole ghost thing too. I don't know. I mean, I know basically like the whole movie is supposed to be like this whole series is supposed to be passing on the torch, so to speak, from older characters to newer characters. But I'm not really sure what I think of this one because Luke still seemed pretty spry, even just as a force projection, and he does some really cool little stunts on the island that he's at when he meets Rey. I mean, I'm sure if he wanted to, like we actually find his X-wing fighter underwater in this one part. I mean, I'm sure if he wanted to, he'd just pull that ship up and take off. I don't really get like what his motivation was to just basically just take himself out. So I don't know. I'm kind of hoping maybe they'll get into that next one at all, or maybe I'm just used to like the books and stuff where you see all kinds of adventures between with the main with Luke, Han, Leia, and Chewie and stuff taking place after Return of the Jedi, and we've not really got any of that in the new movies. So maybe I'm just kind of keep hoping that for more of that, but if so, maybe that's my fault. But so yeah, so in Force Awakens, Han dies. In The Last Jedi, we see the end of Luke. And unless Leia's, unless Carrie Fisher did any scenes for episode 9 before she passed away, I I'm not really sure what's going to happen with episode 9. But anyways, just come back around. I mean, I've been talking for like a half hour here. I should probably wrap this up. But I mean, overall, I mean, I did really enjoy The Last Jedi, and seeing everything that happened, it really did make me curious to see what's going to happen in episode 9. Pretty much the entire playing field is the entire galactic playing field has changed now. I mean, basically, what's left of the Resistance is just everybody that's on the Millennium Falcon right now. So, I mean, Kylo Ren is now basically the supreme leader of the First Order. Oh boy, that's gonna go well. Um, Basically, everybody's talked about how Rey is really the last Jedi. In fact, there's this really cool thing. Like, basically, you all thought like we were all led to think that the Last Jedi kind of refers to Luke, especially because he's quoted as saying that it's time for the Jedi to end. Well, he definitely ends up having a change of heart at the movie because at one point, like right before Kylo Ren slashes his force projection, he's like, "Once I kill you, you will be like. Once I kill the last Jedi, like once I kill you, you'll be the last Jedi." Blah 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 blah. And like basically trying to do this whole evil bad guy thing, and it looks like it's amazing. Everything you've just said there is wrong. And he starts going down the list. Goes, "Oh, and by the way, I will never be the last Jedi." So no, it's definitely so. Rey is for now the last Jedi. So she's the one that I guess it was really about. So yeah. So there's gonna be basically one Jedi, one whatever Kylo Ren considers themselves now, Sith, Dark Jedi, what have you. Um, so I don't know. I mean, it is an interesting place that they're setting it. I, I'm I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt going into this one. I mean, especially because with J.J. Abrams saying that he's going to be back in charge of Episode 9. So it'll be interesting to see what he'll do with the ball being handed back to him. And actually, though, actually I should somewhat take it back because we know that Rey isn't going to be the last Jedi, as in at least not the last Force user, because at the very end of the movie, we run into these stable kids that Finn and Rose had met when they were on Canto Bight, and we find that one of them is able to use the Force. We see him do this little levitation trick and pull a broom towards him, and then we see him looking up at the stars as the ship goes by in light speed. So, is this kid going to be part of Episode 9, or is he going to be part of the next trilogy they've already announced? Who knows? Either way, it'll be interesting to see where this is going. So, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this little look at Star Wars The Last Jedi. If you like this video, feel free to hit like, share, subscribe, or if you want, even just hit the little donate link down below. And I hope you guys will stay tuned for the next videos. For now, for the Mathiason Project, this is Thor Mathiason, signing out.